I had spent years planning my son Mason's wedding. It was meant to be the best day of my life. Well, not mine, precisely. But seeing him begin a new chapter with someone he loved, standing proudly at the back of the hall on that day, I had imagined it in 100 different ways. Maybe I'd laugh a lot, cry a little, or just stand there and applaud. But nothing in all those daydreams prepared me for what I witnessed that day. The ceremony was being held in a lavish hotel ballroom in the heart of the city. Chandeliers glistened, like stars. The marble floors probably cost more than my old pickup truck. Though I wasn't used to such upscale places, I dressed to impress. I wore the same black suit I'd worn at Mason's college graduation. I even had my boots shined to hide the scuff marks. I stood for a while, taking deep breaths, assuring myself I belonged there. After all, I was Mason's father. That meant something. They escorted me to my front row seat where my family was, seated. At first, I didn't notice the small folded card on the chair reserved for me. I was too focused on not tripping over the expensive carpet. But eventually, I leaned down to check it. The name on the card didn't say Mr. Daniel Cooper. It didn't say Dad or Father of the Groom. My heart stopped. What it did say made my chest burn. Burn so intensely, I felt like I couldn't breathe. It read, Low-educated fake dad. At first, I thought it was a mistake, a cruel prank. I looked around expecting someone to come over and swap it out, to apologize. But no one came. Then I heard the laughter. At first, it was muted, like someone trying to stifle it behind a hand. But it grew louder and more confident until I looked up and saw them. Judith, Claire's mother, trying to hide her smirk. Her husband, Dr. Richard Whitmore, grinning as if he'd just seen a dog wearing a tuxedo. My ears burned. My palms began to sweat. I turned to look for Mason. He was up at the altar adjusting his cufflinks. He hadn't seen it yet. Thank God. My first instinct was to leave. To walk out before Mason noticed and before anyone else could laugh. My legs felt like lead, but I made them move. I stepped away from that little card and toward the side door. Then I heard it. A voice, sharp and unmistakable. Dad! I stopped in my tracks. Turned around. Mason was jogging down the aisle. His navy blue suit jacket flapped behind him. His cheeks were red, not from embarrassment, but from anger. The kind of anger I hadn't seen in him since his bike got stolen when he was 13. He reached me, grabbed my arm gently but firmly. Dad, let's go home, he said, voice trembling. I just stared at him, shocked, the whole room watching us. But when I looked into Mason's eyes, those same brown eyes that used to look up at me from a crib, I knew what I had to do. I nodded. We turned our backs on the chandeliers, the gleaming floors, the stairs. I heard the gasps and whispers behind us, but I didn't care, and Mason didn't either. His hand stayed firmly on my shoulder, steadying me as we walked. Claire stood motionless at the altar, her white dress glowing under the double doors. Judith's jaw was hanging open in horror. Dr. Whitmore looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. Outside, the sun was harsh. Mason clenched his jaw, stepping ahead a bit. I could tell he was trying not to cry or scream. We didn't talk until we reached the parking lot. My hands were shaking as I fumbled with the keys. I'll drive, Dad, Mason said, taking them from me. I climbed into the passenger seat, still in shock. As we pulled out of the lot, I stared out the window, trying to collect my thoughts. I should have felt humiliated. I should have felt crushed, but I didn't. What I felt, what overwhelmed me, was something else entirely. Pride. Mason could have stayed, could have let them laugh, carried on with the perfect little wedding, but he chose me. He chose loyalty over appearances. He chose love. The city blurred past us in streaks of glass and steel. We sat in silence, the good kind. the kind that says everything without needing words. But I couldn't stop thinking about that name card. Low-educated fake dad. That's how they saw me. Not as the man who worked 2 jobs to keep the lights on. Not as the father who braided his son's hair awkwardly because mom wasn't around. Not as the guy who stayed up all night when Mason had pneumonia, praying to a God he wasn't sure he believed in. No, just a joke, a sideshow, a punchline. Mason tapped the steering wheel lightly. "I'm sorry, Dad," he said. "I should have seen it coming." I swallowed hard. "You stood by me," I finally said. "That's what matters." Mason looked over at me. He smiled. Not a big smile, but a real one. And in that moment, I saw all the versions of him I'd raised. Proud, grins, missing teeth, teenage smirks. We didn't go straight home. Instead, we pulled into the old diner on 4th Street, the one we used to hit after Little League games. It was mostly empty. Just a few truckers and a waitress cleaning counters. We sat at a booth by the window. Mason ordered coffee. I got pie. The world kept spinning outside, but in that booth, everything stood still. Maybe the Whitmores were still trying to figure out what had just happened. Maybe they were cursing me. Didn't matter. I had my son, and for the first time in a long, long while, that was enough. I didn't hear the first part of the decision, since I was fiddling with my work boots on my lap. I just heard the portion that said, "Full custody was granted to Mr. Daniel Cooper," and I couldn't help but cry in the courtroom. I attempted to stifle the choking sobs, but Julianne only gave me an awkward back pat and said, "You earned this. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." But I didn't feel like I had. Mason was mine to raise and protect from that moment on. He scratched me every Christmas morning when there wasn't much under the tree. When he was younger, I'd sit by his bed late at night, watching him breathe, terrified. Terrified I'd ruin everything. That love wouldn't be enough. Maybe the whispers were right, that I wasn't good enough. But Mason always smiled at me when he woke up. That wide-eyed smile told me maybe I could figure it out. Not by the norms of any parenting manual, but by the only one that mattered: showing up, staying, loving. As he got older, teachers looked at him funny when I showed up in oil-stained boots. Other parents invited Mason to birthday parties, but never invited me to their barbecues. Mason didn't care, even when it hurt more than I wanted to admit. I prepared myself for the day he'd come home from school and talk about the kids whose parents had corner offices and PhDs. I thought he'd start wishing he had a better dad. But instead, he'd look me dead in the eyes and say, "Dad, you're the smartest guy I know. You can fix